Hey there, welcome to A Year of Trek. I am Mish, and I'm a Trekkie. So today we watched Trouble with Tribbles and the Gamesters of Triskelion. And let's just say I really don't enjoy Trouble with Tribbles. It's a stupid episode. Just kidding. It's a great episode. In fact, it's one of those episodes, it's a fun episode. Um, few notes on it. If I said the Gamesters of Triskelion was a bad episode, I'd be telling the truth. I just did not like the episode. In fact, I fell asleep during the episode and had to replay it. So that's kind of where we're at on that. Okay, so Trouble with Tribbles. I had to go back a couple times. He's when he did his when Kirk had his captain's log, he put it at 4523.4. Yeah, like a big jump. And then of course the Gamesters, that was back to what did I write down? 3211. So, and I know that they're not supposed to jump back and forth, but yeah. Rob agrees that that does not describe it well enough. We'll get there. We'll get there. So, okay. Trouble with Tribbles. So it starts out, and it's a fun episode, and I'm starting to pick up, and I probably picked up on this when I first started watching the episodes, but since I'm paying more attention, I pick up more on it. There was like the digs that these people have, and especially in this episode. What's his name? So Chekhov, he's, and I don't know where this started. This episode may be really where it was very present that he basically, that the Russians took credit for everything, and that trope. But there was basically this planet, and I forgot the planet's name. Anyway, so he's saying that some astronomer got it, and Kirk and Spock call him out on it, and then he says, "Oh, I was making a little joke," and Spock just turns to him and says, "Extremely little, Ensign." I got a little chuckle of that. That was right out the gate. That was right out of the gate. So they rush, priority 1 emergency call. They go to station K7, and they find out that nothing has happened, and that this short joke, extremely short. They find out that it wasn't really important, that this that Secretary Niels, can't remember what his first name, but his last name is Barris. So Secretary Barris made the station manager call it, and I personally connected with the conversation that Kirk and Spock were having with this guy, because it reminded me of being back at the hospital and having a nurse call for a code gray. And for those of you who don't know, in a hospital, most places, a code gray is a combative situation. So it could be within the system I work in. It could be a patient or a visitor or even an employee. So anyway, so you get this code gray call, you run to this code gray call, and you show up, and not only is there nothing going on when you get there, but nothing went on before. It's more like, oh well, the patient looked at me wrong, and I was scared, or well, the patient just isn't listening to me. We're trying to give him meds and he's telling me no. Well, did the patient hit you? Well, no. Why'd you call the code gray? Well, because I wanted you guys to show up quickly. That's the conversation that Kirk and Spock were having with this dipshit. Well, there's this grain that needs to be secure, and I called it because I wanted immediate assistance. It's like, God, what a dumb shit. Yeah. Okay, Karen, let's have a conversation. Absolutely. For dudes, I think the term is Kevin. It's Kevin if you're dealing with a male or somebody who identifies as a male. So I really had that personal connection with that conversation. I got a kick out of it. And of course, Kirk totally digs on this guy. And I didn't write down that dig, but I did write down further digs he got on him. But I think it was something like that he didn't really take him seriously, I think. He goes, oh, that's what it was. That was okay. So he says, I have never questioned anyone in authority in the Federation, or like somebody representing the Federation. And then he pauses and he goes, until now. I was like, that's just so cool. Hey, I just got an email about a vehicle, making sure that my vehicle service contracts and insurance is up to date, even though I already have it. So that was a really bad joke, by the way. No one laughed at that. That was stupid. All right. All right. So they're introduced to, so Cyrano Jones has the Tribble. They introduce it to Uhura and Chekhov. And Chekhov is like, oh, hey, this fuzzy thing is eating this grain. And the bottle had been knocked over and the Tribble is eating it. At no point do they make it, do they try and take this container of grain and set it upright, or clean up their mess? They're just like, oh, fuzzy little thing. And I'm just like, and I don't know why that kind of stuck out to me, but I was just like, yeah, made no attempt. And I know it wasn't in the script. It was the only thing in the script was that it had fallen over and the little furry thing was eating it. But I don't know. They could have a little bit more detail. Let's see. And then, of course, the Klingons are there because it's close to Klingon territory. The whole reason that Kirk is there in the first place is because of this grain and Sherman's planet, and the grain will grow on Sherman's planet. And they, the Federation can get life there first, then the Federation wins the planet. Just a bunch of political BS. So the Klingons show up. They're on the station, and you've got the Klingons insulting Kirk and the Enterprise. And then Scotty, of course, punches distraction. What is it? So Scotty punches the Klingon and then starts a fight. And then you have that where, that famous scene where all the security, all the people in the fight are standing in a row, and Kirk's like, who threw the first punch, and blah, 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 blah. So he has, oh, that's so cute. Thank you, Rob. Rob just sent me a picture of a Tribble sitting on his laptop while watching the podcast. Well, I hope that the Tribble gets enough out of the podcast, like you. So, okay. I got a kick out of Shatner's acting here, because as like Scotty didn't really want to go on shore leave. He wanted to stick around and read his manuals. And so, Kirk's really kind of pushed him into that. So the look on Kirk's face is like he's like he knows that Scotty threw the first punch, and he's really proud of that fact. And he's like, like, dude, I'm so proud of you. Yes. It really did seem, I totally agree. It really did seem that Shatner was having fun with this episode, just because it was almost, I think he dug the story. It brings up another, because his acting was well for the story, which brings me up to a thing regarding Star Trek II, is that how did Nicholas Meyer get actor to have such, how did he get him to act so well in that episode, in that movie? And he actually said that his whole purpose was to make Shatner bored. And so Shatner did his best stuff so they wouldn't have to reshoot the scene over and over again. So that's how he got good shots out of Shatner's. He bored them by continually redoing scenes. So I don't know if that was the same tactic here, but yes, Shatner was having fun. But the whole thing with that scene is like, he was like, I'm so proud of you. Like, I can't be mad at you for getting in a fight. Like, I'm so proud of my Scotty. Until he finds out that he did not get in a fight for insulting the captain. He got in his fight because they insulted the Enterprise, which either one is completely valid. But I just thought that, I'm so proud of you. And then his total mood changes, like, what, really? Like, you couldn't have hit him over me, but you hit him over the Enterprise? I don't know. I enjoyed that little scene. Okay, so other little digs that Kirk had on Secretary Barris. He says he's getting accused of not taking the situation seriously, and he's like, no, I take security and this situation very seriously. It's you I don't take seriously. And then I don't know if it was in the same scene, but the conversation, or a different scene, but the conversation had changed to people making a scene on the station. And this was like the first comment, the first dig was like directly to his face. He just like, I don't take you seriously. But this was kind of like that passive aggressive type of dig. And I don't think I really ever heard it, but I totally got the context now. So they're talking about, Cleon's making a scene on the thing or whatever. And he's like, look, Shatner's giving all these excuses. It doesn't take a lot to create it, to create a scene. And he says, sometimes all you need is a title. And I'm like, ooh, that was just a jab. Because of course, who is he? I have the authority to have the priority one call. So I was like, ooh, that's just such a good, just a good dig on him. Now, Mr. Leslie, I'm bringing up Mr. Leslie. Mr. Leslie died a couple episodes ago, and but I swear that was the same actor. There was a scene where there's a security officer standing behind Spock in the scene, and I swear it was the same actor that plays Mr. Leslie. Now, that actor, and I don't remember his name, but I did look him up. Okay, so I did look him up. He died like just last month, this year, like August of this year, he passed away. He's only credited for 2 episodes. But the actor, I swear, has been like the character Mr. Leslie. We've seen that security officer several times. So I was like, wait a minute. And I can't remember if this episode was filmed before the other episode, but I was like, wait a minute, isn't that Mr. Leslie? I thought he was dead. And then, of course, you have the famous scene where he opens up the grain and all the tribbles fall on him and all that kind of stuff. And then we eventually find out that Darvin is the Klingon spy, the secretary's assistant. I would not be opposed. So going forward to DS9, they actually have an episode where they go back in time and are there on K7 during this scene or during this event. And I can't remember how or why, but they end up doing that because you have the whole, it's like, oh, why do Klingons look like that? It's like, we don't like to talk about it. I would not be opposed. I would not be opposed if they redigitized this episode as part of the original series and had those the actors like from the, and they wouldn't have to have every single scene. It would just be like the scene where all the officers are standing in a row and Kirk is, going, who threw the first punch? Who threw the first punch? That famously, or they were able to get O'Brien and I don't know if Dr. Bashir was in that scene as well. I can't remember, but I know O'Brien was there because Kirk actually, like the way it was cut, he actually turns to him. In this episode, I think, and I'd have to put them side by side, and maybe we might do that when we get to the DS9 episode. But I think they put O'Brien's character in place of that the one guy who's in the gold shirt who was sitting at the table with Chekhov and Scotty when the bar fight started. Which, did you notice? I don't know if, like, Chekhov is like he's drinking his vodka, and then Scotty is like, dude, chill down. And he just takes the dude sitting next to him, he takes his drink and gives it to Chekhov. Like, and the guy's like, he didn't, like, it wasn't an overt thing, but if I was there, I'd be like, dude, that's my drink. What the hell? Anyway, but what I'm getting to is I would love to see a recut of Trouble with Tribbles with the actors from DS9 and basically take those scenes and put them in and maybe even digitize them into the background. So even in this episode, watching it from the perspective of the original generation, that we still see DS9 people in the background, like, because that happened. I think that would make this episode, I would not be opposed to that. I would not, there are some things where it's like, no, you shouldn't change that. But I think this is that type of episode that it would be fun to see that added in as like that supercut or whatever you'd want to call it. So, all right. On to our next episode. Yes, it would be cool. Yes, that's why I brought it up. I don't know. Maybe maybe I'll do that. Just like do an unofficial thing, or because I don't know anybody at Paramount. But I can't do any like background digitization, but I could definitely take two episodes and cut them up and put them back together. Okay. The Gamesters of Triskelion. So I'm going to read you my first notes. Oh no, they're attacked by bad amateur cosplayers. I couldn't, yeah. so of course, Kirk and crew, and not really crew, it's more Uhura and Chekhov. They are stolen and sent to whatever planet to basically learn how to fight. And so these two or these three different colored glowing brains can buy them and bid and gamble. And yeah, okay. So one okay. So when I was trying to pay, I was trying to pay attention. I don't know. It was just really bad. So so I did write, and the whole amateur cosplayers, because I don't know, it just seemed Star Trek is you've got some really bad costumes for the original generation, and it's fun, but this seemed to just be like over the top, over the top bad. Okay, so the what is it? The head dude, the bald one that looked like he had bad skin. Um, he this is what he says to Kirk, or well, I didn't write down what he said something about. He says your titles, your old titles mean nothing here. Basically saying that, I know what the context he was trying to get to. It's like, yeah, you were the captain of a starship, and these people had their roles, but here you're nothing. You're you're under me. I get what he was saying, but if the writer was smart, and obviously in this one they really not paying attention, he says your old titles mean nothing here, Captain. Shouldn't that have been rewritten as your old titles mean nothing here, Kirk? So I'm going to say your titles mean nothing here, but I'm still going to refer to you by your title. Yeah. So the whole Uhura being attacked, I don't know if that was appropriate for, like, I don't know. There's some scenes that are appropriate for episodes and they're within the context, but I just think that it was just there to, I don't know the point of that scene. I really don't. I don't want to say I was offended by the scene, because I wasn't. I just thought the scene was stupid and unnecessary. I don't know. I did find, and just because it had let's see, if he had said captain with more spite or dismissal, it would have worked. Yes, if he had just, and maybe it was just the actor not being a good actor, and maybe it was written with that sense, and it just needed the tone and inflection just needed to be different when saying that line. Yeah, I think they probably could have kept the same line, and then it would have to be delivered differently. So yeah. So this meme, I got a meme, and it is of Kirk with the gal that is supposed to be his mentor, and I can't remember what term they use. That's my term, but he's holding on to her from the back, and he's kind of looking up, and of course she's in this revealing silver outfit, and like this meme says, suddenly I have the urge for baked potatoes. Can't say it without laughing. So this episode sparked that meme, or at least that specific one. And of course, there's other ones out there with that same picture. But if you ever hear me refer to this as the baked potato episode, that is why. So and because I kind of got on those little lines said here and there, like when the theologian says to Pike, it will now consume the nourishment. So baked potato gal is talking with Kirk, and he gives him food. She says, "It is the nourishment interval." I found that somewhat funny, but it is within the context of the other comments elsewhere in the show or in the series. So, let's see. Another comment I have, just boring. I was bored. Like I said, I fell asleep during this episode. That's how bad this episode was, and I had to replay some of it again. I just couldn't stand this episode. However, so and not to say it was good, but I have an idea for a Lower Decks episode, and they could totally play off of this episode. So part of the deal that Kirk had with the three brains is that if he won this fight, which actually the fight wasn't half bad, like it really wasn't that bad. There have been worse choreographed fights, so this one wasn't half bad. That if he won, they had to basically take everybody out of slavery, teach them how to live, and just let them live. Okay. An idea for a future Lower Decks episode is the Cerrito going back to this planet, because by now it's been what is it, between the beginning of Next Generation and the ending of this, it was roughly about 125 years, 128 years, something like that. So maybe we're looking at maybe 150 years. Let's just say 150 years between this episode and whatever's happening on the Cerritos currently, roughly 150 years. So 150 years of evolution of this culture that came from the races that were still on the planet, and these three brains still being there, like betting on the dumbest shit. Like, ooh, I wonder if that guy's going to cross the street. You know, I bid 4 quadrillions or whatever. I don't know. Stupid shit. Anyway, so I don't know if that would be a great episode of Lower Decks, but I think because this episode was so bad, they could have fun with it and like joke about how bad it was. And then maybe even have a baked potato joke. I don't know. So there we go. I know. One really fun episode and one episode that'll put you to sleep. So what are we doing for tomorrow? What episodes do we have? Let me bring up my calendar because my book, don't know where my book is. All right, so tomorrow we have a piece of the action and the immunity syndrome. All right, let's see. Okay, or you have a loved one that has a gambling addiction. Contact the Three Brains Trust to discuss how they can help, and they're betting on you. Oh my gosh. Okay, that's another one. Oh, and you know, okay, Rob, maybe you can see what you think on this. So, of course, every Star Trek episode, maybe not every episode, has some type of theme. And they talked about, you know, slavery and all that kind of stuff in this thing. Do you think that was part of, or just like a side note? Because he mentions it several times and how it's wrong, and he tries to get the at least, you know, baked potato girl to you know, to be like, yeah, you're enslaved and you should really rise up and not listen and do all this kind of stuff. Do you think Was this just a bad attempt at talking about slavery? I don't know. Maybe I just shouldn't put my brain too much on there. Okay, so again, tomorrow we have a piece of the action and the immunity syndrome. So another kind of fun. I remember the piece of the action being fun. The immunity syndrome, honestly, I can't remember what that's about. I know that's really bad of a Trekkie. But that's what we are going to be watching tomorrow and talking about tomorrow at 7. Okay, so response from Rob on my previous question. I think this episode was so all over the place, it was hard to tell. I think the slavery was the original intent, maybe first draft, but got watered down. Okay, yeah. I mean, it kind of was all over the place. Okay, so we're not gonna think about it. Sorry I even brought it up. Piece of the action, the immunity syndrome tomorrow. Watch them. Be back here at 7 p.m. Pacific. I think that's because we also have Lower Decks tomorrow. So Lower Decks, I don't even know why. Yeah, I even forgot about that. Lower Decks at 5:30, like always, or maybe 5. I can't remember. I've been doing. I did it at 5 last week because of my daughter's volleyball game. I don't know where her Thursday game is located, so we might do Lower Decks at 5, and then I'll be back at 7 because the game will be over, and then I'll do our regular show at 7. So there we go. Tune in. Until tomorrow. Live long and prosper, and